What's up, guys? Bringing you a review of the Trijicon Accupower 1 to 8X. I'm filming this in early spring of 2020, and as of this year on SHOT Show, Trijicon released their Credo line, which has a 1 to 8X that will be replacing this Accupower. So as a result of that, these Accupowers have been going on sale as I assume what is the existing stock gets sold out. So you're seeing them for really good prices right now, and I've seen a lot of guys having some interest and asking about them. So wanted to add my 2 cents to the pot and just kind of tell you what my experience has been with it. So I'll talk about the what's good and what's bad with this. I do try and be pretty honest and find what's bad because no scope is perfect, and a lot of guys tend to gloss over the bad stuff and just tell you why they like what they bought. We'll start off with the good though. The good is it's a Trijicon product, so it's very durable. It's got a 34 millimeter tube and a 28 millimeter objective, which is pretty different from the industry standard, which is a 30 millimeter tube and a 24 millimeter objective, at least for low power variables. So what that gives you, you got a thicker tube, presumably stronger, and you got more room for the elevation and windage adjustment. So you got plenty of room for travel inside the tube. The 28 millimeter objective, combined with that 34 millimeter tube, is going to give you more light transmission, especially as you're using it at higher magnifications and in the lower light settings. So your exit pupil is going to be bigger on this than on a 1 to 8 with a 24 millimeter objective. So I like the light transmission. I have used it at dusk, and I was impressed with it compared to other low power variables that I was using in similar light situations. The glass is what you'd expect from Trijicon. I'm not gonna say it's the best out there, but it's very good. I don't think you're not gonna be left lacking when you're looking through this and saying, I wish I'd bought something better. You really do got to pick it apart and compare it to something higher end like a Collis to really even try to find something wrong with it. So glass quality is very good. It is very durable. I haven't heard of any of these breaking. The Vortex razors have been known to break. You can find plenty of reports of those out there breaking. I haven't heard of any of these breaking. I'm sure there may be one or two out there, but what you'd expect from a Trijicon is something that's almost bomb-proof, and I think this definitely fits the bill and would work well on a shit-hits-the-fan type thing where you can't afford to have an Optic breaking. So durability is great. Glass quality is good. I like the 34 millimeter tube and the 28 millimeter objective. I think it's comes at a cost of weight, but it does make it a very sturdy, beefy optic with good light transmission. The iBox I am definitely a fan of. The limitation with low power variables is that you don't get the same amounts. You have to have your eye fairly in line as you're looking down the tube. Your eye has to be fairly well aligned with it, which is not so much an issue with red dots. There you can be left or right of center and still get a pretty good picture, but by the nature of the tubes and low power variables, you do have to stay in line. So that was a problem I had with the NX8. I actually had it mounted on this scar, and I really did not like the Nightforce NX8 because that eye box was very limiting, which means when you're pulling the rifle up and getting target for your target acquisition, it's not as quick because you have to find that perfect space where your eye is in line down the body of the tube. And if you're shooting in kind of unconventional positions, if you're trying to pop a couple shots off underneath a car, around a barricade, doing your high-speed LARPing, the better the eye box, the quicker you're going to be able to get those shots off, and the quicker you're going to be able to acquire your target. So for a low-power variable, and especially for an 8X, this Trijicon does have a very good eye box. No complaints at all, which is not something that I can say for that Nightforce NX8, like I said. All right. Lastly, the turrets. What I like about the turrets is they are exposed. So if you're shooting further out, which you may be with an 8X, and you want to dial your elevation, you can do so. You can't turn it, though, without first popping the turret out like that. And then you can make your adjustments, and then you pop it back in, and it's set, and it can't wiggle out. I think it's a great turret design. One thing that is kind of funky with the turrets is when you're setting your zero, you pop your turret off like you would with any other scope. But when you try to pop it back on, you can't actually align the zero on the turret with the hash mark that indicates your, where your setting is at on the body of the scope. There's a pretty easy workaround for that. Basically, you set your 0 as you would, and then take it a couple clicks left or right of center. Then when you unscrew your turret, take it off, you set it back 2 clicks left or right of center, and then you screw the cap back on, and then at that point you're able to set it to 0, turn it back 2 clicks in whichever direction you turned it originally, and you'll be at 0. So it's kind of a weird thing. I don't know why you can't just drop it on with the 0 aligning with the hash mark. Not sure, but it is an easy workaround. All right, the bad. There's 2 major complaints, and they're both fair and valid complaints with the Trijicon Accupower. The first is the weight. Along with the 34mm tube and the 28mm objective, you are going to get more weight than a scope that has a 30mm tube and a 24mm objective. This one weighs 25 ounces, which is the same as the original Vortex Razor Gen 2E, or excuse me, Gen 2, not the E version. I believe that was 25 ounces. Compared to other scopes, low power variables, high-end stuff, the Night Force Attacker is 21 ounces. If you look at some other stuff like the Collis, although it is a 1-to-6, it's only 17 ounces. And I think the Gen 2E version, or the enhanced version of the Razor, is 21 ounces. The USO SVS, 21 ounces. So kind of that 17 to 21 ounces seems to be the industry standard for low power variables. And this is a 25, so an extra 4 ounces or more, depending on what you're looking at. So it's heavier. The other complaint is the illumination is not daylight bright. And I've heard some guys in videos online say that it is, and I don't know what they're looking at. If you got a little bit of sun poking through the clouds, plenty bright. But if it is a full, noon, sun shining down on you, the reticle absolutely does get washed out. And that can hurt you a little bit as you're trying to get, pull it up quickly and find that reticle. If you got a busy background with a lot of things going on, whatever you're shooting against, then not having that great illumination could hurt you. For me, I'm okay with the weight. Given the tube size and the objective size, I expect that. The illumination, I really wish Trijicon had done better. It's not something that's a killer for me. I wouldn't say don't buy the scope because of it. But if that's something you really care about and you really are mainly shooting on 1X and you want that bright, real bright reticle, this does not have it. So you're going to need to look elsewhere. Things I'm neutral on. The the field of view is middle of the road. I'm not impressed and I'm not disappointed with it. Comparing it to the Collis K16i, which is kind of the leader in the game right now, this has a much smaller field of view left to right when you're looking down it. But compared to other low power variables, the US Optics SVS that I've owned and the Night Force, I am decently impressed with it. No, it's not disappointing. One other thing that I've heard guys complain about is the reticle, saying the reticle is too thick for precision work. The center crosshairs in this, the bars that make up the cross that go, through the center of the reticle, are each 2.25 mils, quarter of a mil. And, people complain about that, but that seems to be the standard. The Night Force Attacker has a 0.35, so actually a larger center dot. And so I think it works out to be about the same, because the attacker with the 0.35 versus the 0.25 millimeter, but it's a cross, so you do get a little more, the cross obscures your vision, and it's the actual thickness of the bar that runs across. That's a quarter of a mil. That's a quarter of a mil is less than 1 MOA, and so if you're shooting out to 800 yards, let's say, it's going to cover up about 5 inches of the target. So not terrible, but it isn't a precision optic. I don't get why people kind of trash on it for that reason, because if you want to do precision work, a low power variable is not the best option for you, and you should be looking at something like maybe a Mark V, a 3 to 16 or 3 to 18, excuse me. And so I don't fault it for that. Where it stacks up in general, I think there's better options if you want to use this primarily. If 90% of the time you're using this as a red dot or out to maybe 200 yards, I might be looking at the Vortex Razor, although the durability is questionable. The US Optics that I've talked about in the past is probably going to do a little better just because it's lighter and the center reticle is a little brighter. So I wouldn't say this is the best option out there, especially for a 5.56. If you're doing mostly close quarter stuff and you're running around shooting stuff close up, you want a large field of view and a bright reticle. Wouldn't say this is the best option. I would say it's a very good option though if you're somewhat balling on a budget and want a good optic for something like a 308, AR-10 or 6.5 or a SCAR heavy, something that you want to be able to take some abuse and where you want that extra 8x magnification versus the 6x that most in the industry have, and aren't too concerned about the weight. So I think it really does well on that on those type platforms. Or if it's a 5.56 that you want for DMR type purposes, and most of your shots are out past 100 and shooting out to 400 or 500 yards. In that case, I think this does well. So low power variable, where you want a little more magnification, where you want something durable, and you're less concerned about weight and illumination for shots up close. So gotten a little long-winded, guys, as I'm prone to do. I apologize about it, but thanks for your time, and hope this review brought you some good information.